Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Finally Feel Free event. Today, I have a really special guest, Ilan Stephani. She is a cutting-edge somatic researcher and down-to-earth modern mystic. She focuses on embodiment tools, health, sexuality, collective trauma healing, and mysticism, and gained nationwide attention with her best-selling book. Ilan shares her work in both German and English, online as well as in person. Ilan, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I have to say, most of my work is published in German. So most of my output is published in German. So at the moment, it feels very exciting for me, like being invited to an English event, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Oh, amazing. It's so good to have you. We love to be diverse and connect with people from all over the world because
Mm.
it just gives you such a different perspective on things often as well.
Mhm. And honestly, I mean, when we dive into the fascinating aspects of aliveness and embodiment, it's all about us regaining our sense of being interconnected, right? And
Mm,
I think us being connected due to the internet through
mm,
different continents and different mentalities and different backgrounds, it's just mirroring back to us, reflecting back to us how we are wired inside anyway, which is a nervous system that's just interconnected. So I'm a huge fan, just as you are, on interconnection and co-creation, because that is the blueprint of creation anyway. And us enjoying those aspects of online business
mm.
as being connected with everybody that we feel drawn to it's such a rich matrix that we are living in.
Yes, I love how you put that because we are just, it's allows so much more space for synchronicity and adventure. And I feel like in 10 years' time, or well, I'm hoping in 10 years' time, we will even have that more on a universal perspective. Because, right now, we're all earthly and we're connecting with each other from all different parts of the globe. But I'm hoping that we can ascend our consciousness to be able to connect with things outside of this earth, which many of us do when we channel and we download and all of that stuff. But today we are talking about aliveness and how to just feel more alive, more yourself, just to be on your destined soul path. So, what does aliveness mean to you, Ilan?
So basically, aliveness is what I want to live in before I die. So aliveness is just, I want to, having been here before I exit. It's
Yeah.
just that. It's like aliveness is the term for this kind of intensity and
Mm,
juice and gratitude and ecstaticness that I know we humans are wired for. We
mm,
are like, our biggest talent isn't suffering. Our biggest talent isn't functioning. Our biggest talent is being here, being breathing, being those multidimensional bodies that really soak in so much of our sensations from the outer world and give back so much, radiate back so much. So aliveness comes with a deep unlearning of our cultural imprints. It comes with a deep practice, maybe a daily practice, a daily morning routine of embodying yourself. Why? Because our cultural conditioning can only work. It can only have so much power over us as long as we are cut off from our bodies. So especially for us in this Western society or Western civilizations, it's crucial that we manage a way back to our body, to our physicality. And I resonate so much with the topics that you are sharing in your work, like our soul's path and our dharma on earth, etc. And our soul's path, it's tempting to think of these terms as something that's dissociated from the body, and
mm.
it isn't. It needs the riverbank. Your soul needs the riverbank of your life force, the riverbank of your embodiment. And I'm sharing that and I'm exploring that in my work because I myself was my first patient, my first student. I needed to figure out how to feel alive again because I felt so dead inside while I made like grade A levels, etc. And I was like, I was successful to the outer world, but inside I was dead. And embodiment, sensing myself, taking a breath in, being interested in how that feels in my lungs. That is the prayer that brought me back.
That's beautiful. And I want to ask you, how it feels not to be alive more so people can identify. But I also love that this conversation, because often when we hear about aliveness, it's always like finding something external to make us feel alive, especially with the programming, the lower level programming, and just like being in this matrix world. It's like being alive to the person who is probably not, is still heavily programmed, is like going out there, drinking, partying, doing things of excess, being in full excitement. But you're talking about a different kind of aliveness. You're talking about bringing all of that attention and energy back to you and grounding within yourself and really embodying that. So I'm really excited to get into that. But first, what does it feel then when you're not in your full aliveness, and how did it feel to you?
Honestly, I can't say how it feels for anybody else, but let me say this.
Yeah.
As soon as I'm in a mode of asking myself if I am fully alive right now, I can say for sure that I'm not. So as soon as I'm thinking about my degree of aliveness, I can say for sure that I'm not 100% in my aliveness, because my sense of aliveness is filled with so much flow and so much presence and so much exchange of energy between the inner and the outer world that there is no space to question myself. There is no space to think about my degree of cultural conditioning in this moment or not. And I don't want to, I wouldn't say that it's about non-aliveness or aliveness. It's a continuum, and for everybody of us, I think it can be higher and higher and higher. We can go more and more intensely into these degrees or states of aliveness. So it's an ongoing process of unlearning. But it is something when you think about, could there be a little bit more adventure in my life? For sure. Could there be more passion in my life? For sure. First of all, because you have the time and the state in yourself to think about it like that. And second of all, because more is always possible. It's not about reaching a goal. It's about ongoing curiosity. How much do I deserve my presence? How much do I deserve enjoying my life force? And it's really like flipping around the whole narrative of this culture that basically life is defined by functioning, and you can be excited on the weekend. And that is, I think, why many people do not focus on aliveness, because they are exhausted. And I get it. This world, this matrix is exhausting because it wants you to be exhausted. It sells you stuff by exhausting you. You have to be burnt out. That's the plan. That's the game. That's the whole strategy. So when we think about aliveness as caffeine, then we are exhausted by even thinking about aliveness. But as you say, aliveness is about a sense of trust and safety within yourself, so that all those layers of sensual imprints can flow into you and you digest them as energy. And then you become this energy generating being instead of an energy consuming being that's constantly craving for something, because the basic matrix is I am in a lack of something.
Wow, yeah, I'm just digesting that. I'm digesting that as like a visual of like, that hunger, and that I need to do this and I need to get into this place in my life. And that's a very like pulling energy when we're not in what you're saying, aliveness, whereas you're describing that when we are fully in there, it's like we're radiating, because we're in overflow. We've created so much of that for ourselves. We know how to do that, whatever you want to call it, whether it be aliveness or feeling good or feeling on aligned or whatever it is. There's so much abundance of that it just overflows. So everybody that comes into our field just feels nourished, and then it inspires them to be that way. And they ask you like, oh, something's really different about you. Like, what did you do? And that's how we actually get to spread this knowledge and this joy to
Yeah.
each other.
But honestly, it's such a challenge to let go of this old self-image of, oh, I need something. So I think the biggest problem for people is not navigating through their suffering, through their damages. The biggest challenge is navigating through them overflowing with energy. So we suppress our overflow of energy so much that we end up experiencing like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I suppress my whole energy and then I'm like, see, I don't have any energy. And honestly, I suffered from chronic fatigue for at least 10 years in my life. I know how it is to not be able to get up in the morning out of bed because I'm so fucking tired. And I know that this is a very convincing state. And I'm not saying like every person suffering from chronic fatigue just has to do the switch around embodiment. But I do know that our physicality when we are born is primarily wired for an overflow of energy. And this is such a paradigm shift on the individual level and also on the collective. I mean, just imagine on the collective level, we as human like as mankind, we are not like extracting from Earth, but we are like, that we exist makes Earth more happy than she would have been without us existing. That we exist makes the universe more ecstatic than us not existing. Like imagine that, this self-image of mankind. And I think it's a very realistic and up-to-date and modern self-image, but it's not the current one. The current one is, let's reduce our global footprint at least a little bit in order to make the apocalypse happen at least a bit later. And that's not the friendliness and the ecstaticness and the bliss of our aliveness steaming into our thinking about ourselves. It's us punishing ourselves, thinking poorly of ourselves. And if we think poorly of ourselves, we won't show up for ourselves, not on the individual level and not on the collective. So I think us celebrating ecstaticness and overflowing of energy, it's a highly political thing. It's a highly explosive thing. It's meaningful.
So where do you think, if somebody is in, of course, everybody listening will want to aspire to being like this, and especially, this audience who are on the path, they're dedicated, they've done this inner work, they're on this, spiritual path. So what are like some of the things that people can do to shift out of that kind of suppression of energy and, just not embodying who they are or not being present? Like, what's like some simple steps that people can take to start feeling more alive again? Or even if people are feeling very alive, how can they amplify that?
Yeah. Two things. Like, first of all, everything that I'm about to share happens in the body, right? So we are like diving into embodiment. Two elements. First of all, whole body shaking. And second of all, intimacy with your rage and your anger. And I will say why, and then I can describe like a short practice that you can do or anybody can do. And it's the best energy booster that I ever came across. So the first thing is, us suppressing our energy is in itself an auto-aggressive act. So this in itself means us suppressing anger, which is by nature something that expands, something that radiates out, something like, I'm angry at you, I say stop to you. There is something that expands my energy. Me pointing with this energy against myself is a deep act of self-hatred, and especially women in our culture, like smiling, being pretty, etc., we are conditioned to suppress our anger. So you becoming intimate and alive with your anger again, underneath of your layers of learned patterns against your anger, like how to fight back against your anger, how to hold your anger back, is such a deep relief or breaking free from cultural taboos and maybe also your familiar patterning. That's one thing. And the other thing is whole body shaking, because whole body shaking, it's this trembling that we see in mammals when they came out of a stressful situation. And we all know that they are doing that. And we all know that humans are just mammals. We are wired exactly the same. So we want to be shaking kind of all day long in a culture that is so stressful as ours. Why don't we do that? Out of social norms. And that's unacceptable, because it costs us at the end of our day 95% of our energy to be not shaking. So my recommendation for any woman, any person in this culture being interested in more aliveness and more self-love and more radiation with her true essence is a morning practice that combines these two things. Can I describe it just for a moment?
Yeah, you can describe it, you can do whatever you want.
Oh, thank you for the stage. I'm so grateful. Oh, wow. Yes, so much fun.
Yeah.
So let's say this woman has 7 minutes of her day for this morning practice, and it really only takes 7 minutes. This morning practice is divided into 3 phases. The first phase is 3 minutes. The second phase is 1 minute. And the third phase again is 3 minutes. The first phase is about her shaking for 3 minutes. And she can have her favorite Spotify, whatever playlist, and just shake for 3 minutes. She stands, she opens her legs, she shakes in her knees and in her hands, in her wrists. And from there, in her whole body, she will just feel like I start, like, for example, now I start in my hands, and then I allow it to my shoulders. And I allow, even though I'm sitting, I allow this flow of energy through my whole nervous system and energy system. And I close my eyes and I breathe through my mouth. That's it. That's the basic warm up for just 3 minutes of me opening my energy channels and just flowing in my inner life force. That's me being pretty much embodied and pretty close with myself. So now stop the music and you stop shaking. And you come from this alive and embodied state, and now you remember a situation in your past. No trauma, no trauma, no trauma, but you remember a situation in your past where you learned to suppress your anger or to blame yourself. And the interesting thing is not remembering the details in my mind. The interesting thing, again, is what's happening in your body. Because every imprint from our past that still has power over us has an imprint in our body. So first question, when you're like standing there after 3 minutes, whole body shaking, you're standing there and you remember the situation when somebody told you, like, it's sweet if women or girls are angry, but honestly, sweetie, seriously, something like that. It lands so deep in devaluating women. It lands so deep in our self-image that we never speak up again. So I remember the situation, and my first curiosity is, how is my posture in my whole body when I receive this message? That it's embarrassing to even try to have an own will. How is my posture? My second curiosity is, how am I breathing? And in many situations, you don't breathe at all in these situations. My third curiosity is, where do I contract muscles in my body? If I, for example, clench my hands, I do that even stronger. If I clench my jaw, I do that even stronger. I exaggerate the tension in my body. And the fourth curiosity is the most important one, especially for women when it comes to anger or self-love or energy. Where do I collapse? Because we manage like to cut ourselves off from our own limbs, from our own arms. Like suddenly it's an arm, but it's not my arm. Like you could do something with this arm, but it's like you would be doing something with an arm, but not with myself. Like you can move my body, but you can't touch my essence. And this, like the sum of those collapsed parts of our body comes with a huge cost in terms of life force and like the basic sense of being safe in yourself. So again, what's my posture? What's my breathing? Where do I contract muscles? Where do I collapse? Those 4 aspects are super interesting. And in the second phase of these 7 minutes, the woman just stands in this. Like, for example, this, I just hold it for a minute. And after this minute, in the third phase, I release all of that. It's like I'm standing here and then and I stand and I put on the music again and I go into whole body shaking, at least shaking. The even better, go into some kind of wild expression of this tigress that is inside of you. It's almost like there is a series of movements and expressions and sounds that I held back specifically when it comes to this or that situation. So I allow now all of those movements, especially. It's like I focus towards the taboo. I break through the taboo with all my focus and all my precision. And this is me shaking for 3 more minutes, or jumping up and down, or celebrating, or just having the best party song ever, but coming like as fast, as deeply as possible into my physical expression of I'm fucking free. And nobody will ever, ever underestimate me. Not in my anger, not in my sadness, not in my truth, not in my essence. And when we embody this switch from being shut down and small and embarrassed for our anger into this, our anger transforms into our pride, into a sacred fuel for energy for our whole day. And in the right situations, we have our back. We have our sense of dignity. We have our presence for saying that's not okay. It's not somebody says something and I'm like, after 3 weeks, oh yeah, I should have said something. But it's like right in this moment, because rage, sacred rage, is the basic medicine for the wounded tigress. And I see all of us, especially as women in this society, as wounded tigresses on their way of recovery. So it's like whatever you want to change in your life, give it a try 7 days in a row with these 7 minutes of shaking or morning practice around your anger. Because if you tap into your anger every morning, you will tap into the instinct for efficient acting, for efficient moves, for efficient and wise decisions and changes in your life. It's like anger is like the riverbank for just anything that you want to manifest, anything that you want to create. And the last thing that I want to say is, I want so many more women being in their radiance and being visible and embodying their worth. And if you manage to be angry in a healthy, embodied way every day, it's the essence of visibility. It's the superpower of visibility. So women being in touch with their anger, they manage to be visible. They manage to show up with what they learned, with what they want to give to the world. And I can't wait to live in this world. So that's my that's my ad block. That's my promotion for 7 minutes of your day. And I think they are so well used. If you tap into whole body vibration and into your anger and unlearning how to suppress your anger and put it against you, your life will transform without you having to target it into a certain direction, without you having to work specifically on something, just because this fuel that recovers and comes up, bubbles up inside of you again, it just will take over in the wisest and strongest way possible.
Wow, that sounds like such a powerful practice. And I've never really heard anyone speak about anger in that way, because most times people see anger as like a low vibrational emotion and we need to like just, it's not yours. And I mean, everything's valid, but this sounds like a really great way to like channel that, you know, and not go against yourself. And when you're actually in the heat of a moment of like conflict or in just a situation that you can feel, because this is great for mourning, But what about when you're in the middle of something? Like, would it help to like just go in another room and just shake?
Mhm. First of all, yes, if you can afford that, that makes sense. Because the moment that you are triggered, your nervous system is high on stress and wants to shake immediately. And our instinct for shaking takes over the moment that we feel safe. So let's say I'm triggering you, then you don't feel safe with my presence. So you might want to create a container full of safety where I'm locked out, like I won't come in, and then you can release and then you can tremble. Yes, that makes sense. But two things. First of all, let's say the two of us have a conflict and I do not manage to speak up. Then, like, thank gracefully enough, thank you, nervous system. My nervous system, like, it holds the story. It's still written in my nervous system. So the next morning, even at that evening after our conflict, I can shake when I'm alone again. So I don't have to jump into this moment at this moment, because otherwise the situation is gone. I can wash it out of my nervous system later on as well. And second of all, our everyday conflicts with people, our everyday patterns with people, they will become less powerful. They will even vanish when we go into some kind of morning practice like I described. It's almost like I can say, I know that I can be triggered by women, but I might have a conflict with you, and I don't, I hope I get around it. So that weakens my inner process. But when I'm like, hey, the two of us will, let's say, even just have a conversation. We never know if we like each other. We never know if we feel safe with each other. How about me showing up this very moment, shaking with the risk of being in a conflict with another woman? And just not because I want to tame our encounter, but because I want to take serious that my life is feeding me with opportunities for my own inner freedom all the time. So people are waiting too long for taking action when it comes to seeing their patterns. And yes, I mean, I so deeply resonate with you, like almost nobody talks about anger in that way. And I think it's very, very risky. I could even say dangerous if we come from a culture that deeply devaluates women and their freedom and their capacity for anger in the first place when we are little girls. And then later on, we just come with this teaching of, oh, it's a low vibration, or it has nothing to do with the other person. I think it's risky because we tend to say, oh, yeah, that's spiritual. And yes, it is. But at the same time, we agree with it because it's like the same taboo or the same no-go as in our childhood. So my deep wish is that every woman, it's not about acting anger out, certainly not. To me, this morning practice is a recipe for world peace, like for worldwide peace, definitely. Because if we stop throwing bombs at ourselves, if we stop throwing bombs on other people, we just allow the circulation of energy in our nervous system. And then, again, the essence of anger isn't aggression. The essence of anger is self-love, is calm, feeling safe, and having an encounter that's full of dignity and full of presence. It's like anger provides you with the guts to be in full contact, which in itself is a loving thing. So it's like we need to embody our anger also in order to take care for ourselves, for our children, and for this planet. It's a basic thing of life matters to me. My life matters to me. So I'm taking care of it. This kind of basic statement comes with a healthy dose of anger.
And I think it's so important to note that you said, like we're not acting out anger. We're not giving full permission for anger in an explosive state or anger in a dysfunctional way, because it can be very dysfunctional. Like anything can go either way. You're saying, you're channeling this anger with a daily practice to like to reclaim the higher vibration of anger is empowerment. It's like it's giving you that power again, where it's like and you can transform that into energy rather than if you suppress it, you're spending all your energy like, no, that's actually spending energy, like pushing it down. But you can bring it up and transform that energy and use that energy in your life to like go forward into something that you want to go. And also you did mention, which I agree with, you don't have to sit there with your mental faculties and say, what is my next step? Like, just by doing this, it will just happen. You'll get your power, you'll get your energy, and you just will know what to do. And the other suppression and the conflicts and all of that will start transforming as well, because it will start becoming less and less. And I imagine, like, with all kind of powerful somatic practices and this kind of healing work, you will start seeking better relationships where you won't have those situations again. Because when you're in touch with your body, you're in touch with that higher intelligence of yourself, you will be able to see, like, this is for me, this isn't for me. We've been here before, we've like shifted out of that. It's not a mental thing. It's just like in a second, you will just know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like your body is your higher self. We can put it that way. If you tap into the accurate attunement of your body, you tap into an infinite source of information. It's so rich. It's really like we are not only walking in paradise, potentially, we are a walking paradise. And this is a way deeper challenge for our self-image than us working in our misery. Yeah, I love how you put it.
Yes. And I also love how this whole conversation has like literally transformed the way that I see anger. And I know, that everyone should I'm definitely going to do this practice for 7 days.
Yeah.
So I also
Yeah.
ask the audience to try this out for 7 days.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
beautiful, wonderful gift that
Yeah.
you have given all of us. And we will put all your links down below, Ilan, so people can really check out your work and follow you and be part of your community, your website, your Facebook, your YouTube channel, Instagram, and you also have somatic online adventures. We will put that link below as well. Thank you so much for being part of this Finally Feel Free event. And do you have any other last words of wisdom just on freedom? Because that's what we're all here for in this event.
Yeah. My biggest wish is that we never underestimate who we are as humans, and that we take our freedom serious, not as a selfish thing, but as the most selfless service that we can do to this world, to this planet, and to the future. So it's like, it's not a hobby working on your embodiment. It's not a hobby working on your connectedness with your anger. It's your duty when it comes to worldwide peace. So it's really we're of deep service when we take our aliveness and our potential for ecstasy serious. It's a deep service. And I really, really want us to step into this path or go further in this path, not from an angle of, oh, I take time for myself. No, I withdraw from my duties in order to come back to my first and foremost prayer, which is about let aliveness be present, be real on earth for every living being.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for everybody listening. And yes, let's create a world full of ecstaticness and aliveness. Yeah.